In my youth, I would spend a huge amount of time in arcades. It's where I like to play some great games of the time, and also play some of the games that might make their way onto the home formats. Walking into an arcade in the 1980s was very much a journey of discovery, as I would always be on the lookout for the next big title that would occupy my time and eat my cash. So when strolling through arcades, I would spend a few minutes watching other people play, or maybe even take in the attract sequence, and I was very judgmental in those days. If a game didn't look like it was going to be fun, I just walked on by, and that approach is how I treated Crackdown. Every time I seen this in the arcades, I just paid it no attention whatsoever. It looked like Sega's answer to Gauntlet, but with a silly 3 split screen. Even in the days when I would covet the Mega Drive, I would see screenshots for this game, and I just decided I was going to ignore it, based on my arcade experience. But just recently, I have started to look over some games I ignored, just to see if my first impression was correct. And so I found myself playing Crackdown and thinking I was maybe a little quick to judge. The game plays at a slower, more methodical tempo, and back then I didn't have a whole lot of patience for games like that, but now as I am older, I am starting to appreciate them a little more. Using a top-down perspective, the player controls either Ben or Andy, a pair of agents charged with stopping mad scientist Mr. X from taking over the world as they make their way through several timed levels, planting bombs, destroying cyborg enemies using guns and smart bombs, with the goal of each stage is to plant all of the bombs and escape before their collective timer goes off. The 2-player mode in this game doesn't remove the split screen, and each player starts at a different part of the level from the other, and when they meet up, the screens still stay in this single split mode. It's almost like 2 different people are part of the same story and don't know it. Visually, everything is small. Small sprites, small levels, small details. There is not much to look at, and I was pretty surprised to see that this was a System 24 game when I fired it up, especially when you look at the high score page and the insert coin tabs. They have this black tab around them that obscures the background, and it looks cheap in my opinion. I do struggle to see why Sega opted to use the System 24 board for this, as it isn't much to look at really. The sound is very reminiscent of Shadow Dancer in the arcade, especially the magic sounds. So I can't really tell if Sega were cutting corners or it was by design, but either way, the sound is fine. The soundtrack is not memorable or anything, but I guess it's just fine. The gameplay is actually pretty decent, at first. When I started playing this a few weeks ago, I was starting to get into it, but after a while, you discover the gameplay is just too repetitive. It's the same old stuff in each and every level, and there is nothing to break up the monotony of the game. There's no bonus stage, there's no end of level boss, there's nothing. Apart from the end of every fourth stage, it seems to present a challenge, but other than that, it does start to get pretty bland. I initially thought I was wrong to prejudge this game before I had played it, as I had started to enjoy it, I really did. But then, playing it to get footage for this video just became a chore. The lack of variety in the gameplay just doesn't keep me interested, and I would think a lot of players who played this back in the day do not really return to it now. It's a shame as well, as the game did provide a pretty tough challenge, but that challenge is not enough to sustain my interest. And so now, I think back to myself when I was coveting all those Mega Drive screenshots in magazines in 1990. Should I have played Crackdown in the arcades if, for no other reason, than to give me a sample of the Mega Drive version? The Mega Drive, after all, was being touted as an arcade powerhouse with arcade perfect ports aplenty. Sega wasted little time in porting Crackdown to the Mega Drive, and while the arcade utilised the System 24... No, forget that. It utilised nothing of the System 24 hardware. The arcade was housed on a System 24 board, so the port onto the Mega Drive might have been a tall order. But Crackdown to the Mega Drive was a pretty decent port. It managed to capture the look and feel of the arcade almost to a T. Some of the neat little graphical touches are missing, like the placing of the bomb. Now, it simply appears. But other than that, it's not bad. The sound is pretty well done as well. And you know, between this and Bonanza Brothers, the team at Sega who were responsible for porting System 24 games were pretty good, and it shows what can be achieved with the right people in place. The gameplay is very close to the arcade, to the point that it also gets boring after a while. But the boredom may not get a chance to set in, as the Mega Drive version is a lot easier than the arcade version, and a full playthrough can be done without too much worry in about 25 minutes. I would see this game on shelves in importers everywhere, usually for about £30, and even at that price, it just didn't shift. Gaming reviews of the time had mostly been favourable, giving the game 4 out of 5 or 80% upwards. But I guess it only appealed to a very niche audience. And I think the other thing that didn't help shift the game in the UK was the box art. The UK box art looked very generic, but the Japanese box art looked amazing, with a big explosion and anime style artwork. But I guess it just shows, no matter how good the outside is, it's what's in the inside that counts. Crackdown on the Mega Drive wasn't a terrible game by any stretch of the imagination. It was just a game that didn't have mass market appeal. I would, however, recommend that you give it a go when you can, as you may be pleasantly surprised. And that was my look at Sega's Crackdown. If you like this video, then please do give me a sub and a thumbs up, or maybe even a comment or two below about your memories of Crackdown on any format. And a massive thank you to all those who have subscribed and commented on my videos. Your feedback, support and contributions really do go a long way in helping the channel grow, and I do appreciate all of the support. So it's a massive thank you from me. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.